Hi everyone, my name's Garant Parsons from Hannan University in Osaka. Um, my colleague Mike Garant from China will be along shortly. But today we wanted to talk about using podcasting technology in English language learning with a particular focus on interculturality.
This is my campus in China. Actually, it's not. It's the Drum Tower in Xi'an, which is one of the first capitals in China, where the Terracotta Army is located. This is actually my building. It's located at Beijing Institute of Technology, Zhuhai, which is by Hong Kong and Macau. It's a new Chinese campus in a subtropical environment with beaches and palm trees. I teach in the College of Global Talent. Our College of Global Talent students are undergraduate students in an English immersion program. They study business and IT majors, which are very practical, so no liberal arts majors. Their focus is to study abroad for 2+2, 3+1, and 4+1 programs. So a 2+2 program would be they study 2 years with us and 2 years in the United States with one of our partner institutions, which include the University of Kentucky, Mercer, or the University of New Mexico. And they would study there and they would get a double degree. 3+1+1 means they would leave in the third year to, say, Mercer University in the United States and get a bachelor's degree and then stay for a master's degree. 4+1 means they would study 4 years with us and then study 1 year in the United States to get a master's degree. 85% of our BA graduates this year, which is our first class, have been accepted into MA programs in the United States, Australia, or the UK, so our program is quite a success.
Okay, I'd like to tell you about the Japanese students in the study. There were 29 of them, undergraduates, nearly all second year students, although there were one or two third year students. They're enrolled in a public university and they're all education majors, with quite a few of them, though not all, hoping to become school teachers in one subject or another. And of those, probably about a quarter were interested in becoming English teachers. Okay, let me give you a brief outline of the study. At first, we asked students to select a topic of historical interest from their own country and something that they thought would be interesting to people in another country. And then they wrote a quick script, first in their own language and then in English, to try to explain that particular topic. And after that, we asked them to go and try and take photos and videos, and if they couldn't do that themselves, to, while respecting copyright, acquire those photos and videos from somewhere else. Then they put all their images into some video editing software package and arranged them in the right order. Following that, they recorded their own voices narrating their script, and this was then all put together and edited in the software package using some background music, perhaps if they wanted it, or sound effects. And then we used a password protected dedicated website to swap the videos with students in the other country, and then they gave feedback to one another, and also teachers gave feedback as well. And then finally that feedback was used for students to revise their videos to produce their final product. And we did the feedback with a fairly simple little rubric like this, which covered three areas: the content, speaking, and the production of the actual video. And the students were also asked to give a short commentary, 50 to 100 words in English, in which they would pick up on something that they liked about the video they'd seen, but also to try and give some advice on how they thought it could be improved. Now, the focus of this particular study, what we're going to talk to you about here today, was in two particular areas: digital literacy and what we might call interculturality. Okay, with regard to digital literacy, it seems to be a fairly difficult thing to define clearly, and a number of institutions have attempted to do just that over the last few decades. I'm going to start here with Cornell University from the United States in 2009, suggesting it's the ability to find, evaluate, utilize, share, and create content using information technologies and the internet, which seems to be a perfectly reasonable general definition. But a couple of years later, scholars Spires and Bartlett wanted to simplify this slightly, I think, and they decided that they would like to focus on 3 categories: locating and consuming digital content, creating digital content, and communicating digital content. But again, a fairly reasonable general definition. By 2011, UNESCO had come in with, I think, a slightly different focus, in which they suggested that it enables one's participation in social networks for the creation and sharing of knowledge, not just content, but the sharing of knowledge. And that was a slight difference in focus, I think. And then more recently, a think tank from the G20 put a fair bit of time and effort in this from an educational perspective, and they came up with a matrix like this, which had 5 what they call dimensions and 3 different perspectives, which gives us around 15 different areas that we need to look at. And that's quite complicated when you get down to actually teaching digital literacy. And it also occurred to us that digital literacy needs are probably going to be quite different from place to place and from time to time, depending on who needs it. So, for example, somebody who's working in bioethics probably has very different digital literacy needs to somebody who's hoping to work in a trading company. So, in order to try and understand what the situation regarding digital literacy was with our students, in particular regard to this project, we gave them a survey prior to beginning the project and then again when they finished it. And we broke the survey up into 4 different areas, with questions relating to internet usage, to using apps and software packages, to the ethics of a project like this, and also to issues regarding the creation or production of their videos and podcasts. And we also asked them to give us an answer according to how they felt about being able to do this with a smartphone or a PC. And this is a simple can do or can't do kind of things. I know how to, I can do, yes or no. And at the end of the project, we asked them to do the same survey again, but this time we added on a chance for them to say that they'd improved or not in doing this thing. Because if they simply said that they could do it at the beginning and that they could do it at the end, that wouldn't reflect any change in their abilities. And here are the results. I'm going to go through this by section through China first and then through Japan. And as you can see, there were 36 students in this group from China. And in the pre-project survey, you can see that in the things that are related to the internet, that most students felt comfortable in doing most things on both a smartphone and PC, except perhaps in the area of keeping safe from viruses and getting into websites that they don't know about, just suddenly appearing on places. At the end of the project, you can see that there's a pretty marked improvement, that almost everybody feels comfortable with every area, and the majority of students felt that they had improved in all facets of this part of the project. In using the apps and software to do the project, you can see once again that most students felt that they knew how to do most things, except perhaps in the area of which apps that they were going to use to do this project. By the end of the project, once again, I think the great majority of students felt comfortable in both their phone and on a PC, and again, the majority of students really felt that they'd seen improvement in their own abilities. With regard to ethics, not quite so confident in the areas of copyright. It seems like most students understand what a copyright thing is, and they were reasonably comfortable in what can and can't or should or shouldn't go up online. But in terms of copyright, they were not so confident. Now, we gave specific instruction in what copyright is and how to find out if images in particular and music, etc., were protected by copyright, and what they should do and where they could go to try and find things that are copyright free. By the end of the project, again, you can see that this has improved quite a lot. Still not everybody feels that they know how to find things that are copyright free, but again, the overwhelming majority of students felt that they had at least improved in this area. Then in the area of creation, you can see this is a little bit of a mixed bag depending on the PC and using a PC or a smartphone, and the students seem to feel a little bit more comfortable on a smartphone in general. And it looks like very simple editing. Maybe some of the students felt that they could do it fairly easily, but when it got down to being slightly more creative or slightly more technical, the number of students who felt that they could do things certainly dropped. By the end of the project, once again, I think we see pretty high numbers in almost every area, and again, a pretty strong sense that students really felt that they'd improved right across the board. With Japan, we only have 29 students in, so the numbers are fractionally smaller, but it's a fairly similar sort of breakdown here. Again, students not really very confident about viruses, and possibly compared to the Chinese students, not so comfortable about, where they are in the internet and whether something's safe or not. By the end of the project, again, I think we felt that there was a stronger sense that students felt they could do things, but the sense amongst the Japanese students was not such a high one in terms of improving. The majority of students felt that they hadn't improved much at all, and that's something that really needs to be looked into in the future. With apps and software, it's a fairly similar sort of thing. The fact that most students don't know how to use a thesaurus, or and perhaps even what a thesaurus is something that we really need to look at in the future as well. But by the end of the project, again, I think we see some pretty decent improvement across the board. But compared to Chinese students, the improvement in ability doesn't seem to be quite as pronounced. And once again, I think it's worth pointing out that Japanese students seem to feel much more confident in using a smartphone than a PC. In the area of ethics, it's not dissimilar, I think. It's this copyright was the area that most students seem to feel a little bit weak in. By the end of the project, many more students felt comfortable in this area, and I think this is one of the few times we actually see more students saying that they felt that they were doing better in this area, and particularly in the area of copyright. So that was, I think, a positive that came out with the Japanese group. And in the creative area, the Japanese students, again, just didn't seem to be quite as confident at the start as the Chinese students were, and particularly in these kind of more, I suppose, technical and creative areas, not many of them knew what to do. By the end of the project, again, I think we see fairly decent improvement, and also I felt like pretty decent numbers in those that felt that they were better than they were before. But once again, you can see that the Japanese students are much more comfortable using a PC using a smartphone than a PC. And just one final point to note was about which device was used by students. And you can see here it's pretty clear that the Chinese students were much more likely to be using a PC than a smartphone, while the Japanese students are much more likely to be using a smartphone than a PC. And it's also notable that the Chinese students were very likely to be using their PC at the university rather than one at home. Although even in that case, Chinese students were more likely to use a PC at home than the Japanese students. Okay, to sum up this digital literacy section of the project, I think it's reasonable to say that the pre and post evaluation numbers are fairly similar in what students felt that they could do or know how to do. But most students seem to feel that they had improved in most areas, and that's a positive out of this project. The Chinese students tended to give a higher self-evaluation than Japanese students. And now, I don't know why that would be, except to suggest that perhaps it's just a part of that sort of Japanese cultural reticence, that lack of desire to brag or to show off. Japanese students also were tending to use their smartphones more than PCs, and certainly much more than the Chinese students. This might be due to an earlier uptake of smartphone technology in Japan than China. Perhaps these students have only ever really used smartphones. It's also probably true to say that there isn't a great deal of ICT use in schools, primary schools and secondary schools in Japan, and that may also have contributed to this. The reality is that we have to say that the results that we see here relate to just a single project, and we don't know yet whether these skills would turn out to be transferable to other areas of life for the students. So in order to learn something like that, we probably would need to do some kind of long-term tracking of students. Now, we weren't able to do it in this project, but it's something that we'd like to plan for the future to see if something is improving and stays with the students long-term.
This will focus on the intercultural understanding part of the project. So for our theoretical basis, we use the Australian Curriculum and Assessment Reporting Authority, and we looked at general capabilities of intercultural understanding, including recognizing culture and developing respect for it, interacting and empathizing with others, and reflecting on intercultural experiences and taking responsibility. Chinese and Japanese attitudes towards one another are a bit strained. This is represented in the literature on the subject, as well as in popular belief. So we thought that if Japanese and Chinese people have contact with each other, their attitude towards each other would improve. And so we came up with this podcasting project, which Martin has already given you an overview of. We decided to do a pre-survey and a post-survey with 7 covert questions administered by SurveyMonkey in order to determine if their attitudes changed as a result of contact with each other through the podcasts. And we used 35 Chinese university students and 28 Japanese university students in the control group, or in the group that we studied. So the first question we ask is the Chinese students, would you like to visit Japan as a tourist? And here you can see from before and after, you see improvement, that there's more interest in Japan after they've completed the project. The next question is studying abroad for a short-term course. And this also improves in the before and after survey. Next, we asked them if they would like to study for a semester or more. And again, for the Chinese, after seeing the Japanese videos, they become more interested in Japan and think even a semester in Japan might not be so bad, and actually could be good. And then we asked them about relations between the two countries in 2019 when we conducted the survey. And they say good. And so you can see in the first one, it's pretty neutral, but by the second one, it's better. And we ask about 30 years ago, and they say, yeah, it's better than 30 years. And we ask them about the future, and they have a positive outlook for the future. And so there you can see that the Chinese students, by and large, improved from the first survey and the second survey after they had seen the Japanese podcasts. And personally, I don't have any problems with Japan supports this. So here you can see the Japanese attitudes towards the Chinese. And in the first question, would you like to visit China as a tourist? You can see some improvement, but the strongly disagree actually goes up too in that one. But there is improvement between the pre-survey and the post. And here you can see for a short course lasting a week, even though the strongly disagree goes down, the other categories go up. So that's a slight improvement in a short course lasting about a week. For a semester or more, you can see that actually between the first survey and the second survey, it goes down. And are Japanese and Chinese relations good? Here you can see also that between the first survey and the second survey, that the attitudes actually show that they're not as good. Are Japanese-Chinese relations better than they were 30 years ago? Here you can see more optimism that, yeah, they are better. You can see there how they they assess that, and about how their attitudes improve after the podcasting project. And the future, even though the strongly disagree goes down, and you can see that maybe it's going to be better in the future. So the last slide in the intercultural understanding section is, personally, I don't have any problems with China. And here you can see that actually between the first survey and the second survey, the Japanese tend to have more problems with China than they did in the beginning. So what can this tell us? Perhaps the Chinese students, because they're already more internationally focused, become more positive, or perhaps this is the group of students that we're dealing with here in both the countries. So maybe this particular group isn't so keen on China after watching the podcast, but it warrants further study, which is what we're doing now as we're studying this further. And now I'll turn it back over to Martin for the conclusion.
Okay, that concludes our presentation. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions or anything you'd like to know, please contact us at these email addresses. And here's a list of a few of the references we used in this project. Thank you very much.